Islam is unique in the way it follows the twisted path of a wicked person. Someone who created a faith through demagoguery, spread it through violence, and used it very much for his personal gains, and that includes getting himself a good amount of women. And that's what I want to talk about, Muhammad's desire for women. We all have desires, but if we executed those desires the way Muhammad did, the world would look very ugly right now. We are talking about a person who had 13 wives and concubines, 11 of them at the same time, and one of them was a child. After that, you can go ahead and compare the prophets and see and decide for yourself which one is better. So let's talk about Muhammad's wives and his concubines. Muhammad had, as said, 13 wives and concubines. According to some sources, 2 of those 13 wives were concubines. According to other sources, he even had more wives. Some sources even suggest that he had more wives than 20. But details about concubines are pretty much unclear, so he probably had 11 wives at the same time, and lots of concubines that were not really mentioned because they were not important, they are just objects. Let's just go with the number 13. He had 13 wives, 11 of them at the same time, and one of them was a child. He used to live with those wives, all of them at one place, but in separate little houses. Muhammad used to visit all his wives in a certain routine. Sometimes he didn't abide by that routine, but he was allowed to do that. Allah gave him that permission and even put it in the Quran, even though the Quran also tells Muslims to treat their wives equally. Well, the Quran also says that you can have only up to 4 wives, but Muhammad had much more than that. But Aisha summarized that for us very nicely once when she said, "I feel that your Lord hastens in fulfilling your wishes and desires." Some say that Muhammad had such a huge number of wives because the Quran verse limiting the number to 4 was only released shortly before his death. Muhammad could have divorced all his remaining wives, of course, the way all the other Muslims were supposed to do, but he didn't. Some say at this point that Muhammad did not divorce them because the Quran orders strictly not to marry Muhammad's wives after him. Well, did Muhammad not know that before Allah made such a rule? Did Allah not bother preventing him from creating a whole female soccer team? Also, he died in 632, and most of his wives outlived him. They lived much longer after him. And they were never allowed to remarry after that because the Quran strictly forbids that. The Quran says that Muslims are not allowed to marry his wives after him and that his wives are like mothers to Muslims. Anyway, he had 11 wives at the same time, so you'd wonder how he even managed to have sex with 11 wives, right? Well, Muhammad had, according to his companions, the sexual strength of 30 men, which is very impressive. Obviously, I can't compete with that. I don't have that. In comparison, I'm not going to talk about that. Muhammad's first wife was Khadija. Muhammad's first marriage was when he was a good guy in his 20s and he married a 40-year-old woman who had 2 husbands before Muhammad. They stayed together for over 20 years. So Muhammad was actually very virtuous in his first marriage, right? Well, despite Muslims always claiming that women were totally oppressed and objectified and killed before Islam, his first wife Khadija was a wealthy and respected woman who had lots of employees under her, and Muhammad was her employee. After marrying her, he naturally became quite wealthy too. And after declaring his prophecy, Khadija also spent a lot of her wealth into his prophet campaign. So Muslims who always deflect from this discussion and bring up that he was married for so long to a much older woman for such a long time only should also think of this aspect of the situation. When Khadija died, Muhammad suddenly stood there like an elephant that can't control his trunk. A few months after his first wife died, Muhammad found himself the replacement, Sauda. Sauda was a woman that Muhammad apparently didn't like very much. She was even afraid of being divorced once and begged Muhammad not to divorce her, and even offered Muhammad that she could use his sexy time with her for Aisha instead. Muhammad thought that was fine and he just accepted the deal. Few years after he married Sauda, he also married the little child, Aisha, when she was only 6 years old. Then he married a third woman at the same time, Zainab bin Khuzaimah, but she died shortly afterwards, and I guess that's when Muhammad thought, I'm sick of this they all die, I'll just go safe and marry the out of these women, and got himself 9 more women, of which 11 were with him at the same time. Pretty sick, right? Or maybe he just had more time for sex and women, since the Battle of Badr, the turning point of Muslims with clear Muslim victory, was won. Some of these women were even captives that he took from his opponents. He offered them his hand in marriage and converted them to Islam through marriage. Muhammad planted his tool of love in a huge variety of women. Young, old, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, poor, wealthy, healthy, disabled. And many Muslims justify his huge number of wives by mentioning that he was a man of strategy and a man of huge diplomatic importance. They also add that he just took many of his wives to protect them. Seriously? Muhammad, the founder of the faith, the bringer of the Quran, the word of God, which clearly states that 4 is the upper limit for women, had 11 wives at the same time for some stupid reasons. To strengthen bonds, to protect them, as if they couldn't be protected in any other way. He was the holy prophet. And he even ruined their lives by forcing them to stay unmarried even after he dies for their entire lifetimes. And forcing them to stay at home all the time. That's what the Quran says. Does that sound reasonable to anyone who's not a Muslim? Dear Muslims, what would you think if Muhammad was not the prophet of Islam, but the prophet of some other religion? Allah even threatened his wives with divorce. Of course, that Allah, as we know, is Muhammad. Quran chapter 66 verse 5. Perhaps his Lord, if he divorced you all, would substitute for him wives better than you, submitting to Allah, believing, devoutly obedient, repentant, worshipping, and traveling, widows and virgins. Is all of this not enough for you to recognize what a person Muhammad was? Then read this Quran verse. O Prophet, indeed we have made lawful to you your wives to whom you have given their due compensation, and those your right hand possesses from what Allah has returned to you of captives, and the daughters of your paternal uncles, and the daughters of your paternal aunts, and the daughters of your maternal uncles, and the daughters of your maternal aunts, who immigrated with you, and the believing woman if she gives herself to the Prophet, and if the Prophet wishes to marry her. This is only for you, excluding the other believers. We certainly know what we have made obligatory upon them concerning their wives, and those their right hands possess, but this is for you, in order that there will be upon you no discomfort. And ever is Allah forgiving and merciful. If you believe this Quran verse is the word of God, then there is something terribly wrong with you. Now decide, who's better? The pervert prophet? Or the apostate? Thanks for watching. If you like this video and if you like my content in general, please don't forget to share and to subscribe and to like.
Jesus Christ is the only way, the truth, and life. The only way to the Father is through Jesus. If you don't know Jesus, you don't know God. Come to Christ today. Come to Jesus today. He can save, he can heal. He's there for you. Come to Jesus.